simultaneous whole. It's in a model of eternity. But in the creation process, it emerges into time, and through time, and in the whole process of time, God then can reflect, and in that reflection, this is nothing other than a continuous meditation. Therefore, if you have an object of contemplation, right, then you should be able to reason about it. You should then judge. You should then, by necessity, it must be beautiful, must have the capability of reflecting upon it and comparing and judging, so that you can bring and fashion out of the disorder of your own soul a high degree of order. And in that order, there's a clarity, and in that clarity, one can then see the nature of the idea of contemplating. What's that idea? Nothing other than? And what is sameness?
Unity.
The mind of God. Right. Therefore, necessarily, the contemplation on this model brings you back to contemplating on the divine. Yeah.
If the creation is continually evolving, would that mean that the mind of God is continually evolving?
No, the mind isn't. The creative process is continuously going on. It is a creative process that's going on. The idea in the mind of God is a totality, right? It exists complete, simultaneous whole. All of it, it's all there.
So then how can the creation change if it's...
Would you agree that it's possible for some people in principle, whether it's in actuality, I don't know. Is it not possible for someone to know all mathematics?
Yeah.
Conceive of the possibility, right?
Yeah.
And if they know it thoroughly, they don't have to have the book with them, do they? They see through it, don't they?
Right.
If someone were to say to them, "Sir, would you mind expressing what it is you know?" Would he then have to then drop out of that seeing through it as a whole and naturally, and then create sequentially what it is he knows?
Yeah.
And that would be manifesting what he knows, but what he knows wouldn't be algebra distinct from geometry and geometry distinct from calculus and number theory and transfinite numbers, would it not? Would it?
No.
Good. Therefore, in expressing what it is you know on this level, that is a simultaneous whole when you can see it. Or if someone knows many languages simultaneously, you know, that they can move from one language to the other freely. They don't need a dictionary to look up words. They see through what they know if it's contained within themselves perfectly. But if someone were to say, "Excuse me, sir or madam, would you mind showing us what it is?" then the person would have to be drawn to bring it into time, sequentially, build it, and in that process, would they not use all of this?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Good, that was fun. I was wondering how I was going to do that.
I have a question. How does a demiurgos relate to the one in Platonic thought?
Well, you see, in this Platonic vision, the cosmos that's generated, since it then is eternal, that is to say, it doesn't have a beginning or end, it's not eternity, because eternity is a simultaneous whole. Therefore, it is something goes on unendingly, has no beginning. Throughout the entire cosmos, there is soul, there's no part in which there isn't. And there's therefore intelligibility present in soul, therefore the entire universe is intelligible, has intelligibility, has soul throughout, communicates within itself, therefore it's a God. It's a God that's generated, so that's one God. Two, the idea in the mind of God, that theologically is the Son of God. The first creation is the idea in the mind of God, that's what it's called, Son of God. First creation, that's a God. The God that uses the Son of God as a model for creation, right? That's a third, right? And the fourth is God independent of that process, so there are four ideas of God, right? Sometimes called Father, Father Maker, Maker Father, Maker, right? So going back, the idea in the mind of God, that is called in Platonic language unfortunately, forms, so it's a bad word. It's really idea. It's the idea in the mind of God, a simultaneous whole. That's a oneness. All right, that's a oneness. All right? That oneness is the mind of God, right? Therefore, it represents the intelligibility of God. But it is a oneness, is it not? And would you not agree anything that has the property of ness, quality, redness, presupposes there must be red independent of the redness that you apply. Right? Therefore, if the highest idea, which is in the mind of God, is a oneness, it presupposes the existence of a, that's the highest notion of God, theologically. So that's the relationship between the two. No, the demiurgos is actively using it. And if you have a pure idea of God, no activity can be assumed. Because it wouldn't be a one. It would be God and an acting, two. One. Please.
The supreme principle of creation is that God has a desire to create a likeness.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the authority or logic for that? Why would not God want to create an unlikeness?
Oh.
Something different than...
Yeah. See, anything that creates, any creative process, there's always a kinship between the creator and what's created, a similarity. And on the basis of that similarity, there's naturally an outgoing identity and love for its object. Love and identity most freely flow between like things rather than unlike things. The greater degree two things are unlike one another, the more difficult it is to have a communication, a likeness, a love, and a respect for the things. Therefore, the first creation is going to be a step from, see, if the nature of God is one, then the first thing that can be created must be a oneness. For that difference between the two is so slight that therefore there is so much a similarity between the two that there can be a communication and a binding between the two. What naturally follows from oneness is a unity. What follows from a unity is a union. What follows from a union is a wholeness. What follows from a wholeness is a whole. Each one of these is a step further down where an additional degree of difference emerges. So theologically, the reason why God created something like himself rather than unlike himself, that if it were like himself necessarily, this is where we were going to explore, there it is, providence. Right? The idea of providence means that there must be something that is that sees beyond intellect, prior to vidi, mind, that which is prior to mind that brings about a goodness. That's providence. That which is prior to it must be a goodness, and that goodness therefore must necessarily be an accompaniment. Let's put it another way. Another definition for God as one is God the good. And there's an essential unity between the idea of the one and the good. If you're familiar with that, I don't mind going over it. But therefore, the good can only therefore generate something like themselves because they would then be generating goodness. If they're generating goodness based upon an intelligible model, that's the very idea of providence. Maybe I did that too fast, but that's the way, that's a Platonic answer. See, every good, by definition, unifies what shares in it. That's the very nature of it.